And we are live with episode 18 of Let's Do Lunch. Hey, Ben here from Digital Beans. Thank you for joining us today. If you haven't yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Loads to come on the show. Going to introduce you to Claire and Sian in a minute. And also later on, Benjamin Linden, one of our account managers, is going to be here talking about how you can grow your Instagram account. And in capital letters, he put fast. So how to grow your Instagram account fast, which we all want to do, right? We all want to be Instagram influencers, getting the freebies and having loads of followings and people replying to our stories and stuff like that. So Ben's going to be on the show a little bit later on, and of course, having a popular Instagram account may have a positive impact on your business. So we'll chat about that a little bit later on. But first of all, let's get into the nitty gritty of the show, the conversation. And joining me today over this virtual lunch on our virtual table and virtual couch is going to be a lot of virtual talk between us, Claire, I think, today as well. So I think I've already used our threshold of the word virtual on the show already. But Claire Bowley. Claire is the managing director of a full service conference and event management agency called Dynamic Events. At the moment, Claire and the team are helping companies pivot to virtual and hybrid conferences. So Claire, must be a busy time for you at the moment. How are you doing?
Hi Ben, thanks for having me on the show. Yeah, it's really busy actually. I see everybody on furlough who's all been enjoying the weather and the sunbathing and everything. And we've all had our heads down, learning a lot about virtual events and helping clients move across to those virtual platforms.
Yeah, can't wait to get into a chat with you about virtual conferences and bits and pieces like that, and the future, of course, of the conferencing and event world. That's of course a hot topic at the moment too. Also joining us on the show, Sian Holt. She's the MD of Fudge Kitchen with 35 years experience. Fudge Kitchen is the home of handmade and multi-award-winning fudges, caramels, brittles, and more. You need to go and check out the website. Honestly, if you this lunchtime want to just dribble and sort of obsess over food, you need to get on the Fudge Kitchen's website. Of course, Fudge Kitchen, some great recognition as well from the Great Taste Awards, World Food Innovation, and also from Free From as well. Fudge Kitchen pack and produce all of their products right here in Kent. Sian, I mean, I see you're in the office today. I spoke to you a couple of weeks back, and of course, we had a conversation about it being a hectic time for you at the moment. How are you doing? How are things going with Fudge Kitchen?
Yeah, so we have about 50, 60 staff who have been, until very recently, all furloughed, or the majority furloughed. I think we ended up with about 4 or 5 of us, everybody but me, working from home. So it was quite funny, actually. For quite a while, I was the only one in the office. And it took me back to all that time, when I set the business up sort of 35 years ago, when it was me in a shed. And it felt very much like that for some time. But all of our staff have been absolutely amazing through this time. And slowly now we're all beginning to come back. So there's now 4 of us in the office today, which is great. And over at our production facility, we've now got small teams working in little safe bubbles, and our shops opened their doors again on July the 1st. Main launch on last Saturday, so it's still very early days there, and we're not seeing a lot of visitors yet, but we're hoping slowly, now that we're kind of getting out there, that we can begin to spread fudge love again, really.
Fudge love. I love that. That should be like a late night chat show. Fudge love. Come and watch a bit of Fudge love. Sounds great, Claire. And you're talking there about the store and also obviously the factory and the offices and stuff. Later on, I definitely want to pick your brains and we definitely need to have a chat on this show about the praise you've got for having a COVID safe workplace and some of the measures you've put into place. So I think there's so many small business owners out there, so many business owners out there at the moment who are like, COVID safe? What do I do? So we definitely need to jump into that and have a little chat about that. But first, Claire, I want to come over to you. We mentioned earlier on a bit about pivoting and how you're helping businesses get online, get going with virtual events and conferences. But virtual conferences and being able to hold virtual events have been around for ages, haven't they? So what has the uplift been like recently? What has that history of sort of going virtual been in the events and conferencing world?
Well, I guess originally we were all doing live streaming Really, in reality, it's what people are calling hybrid events now. But we've all been doing that for a little while, and mainly the reason being that it extends the reach of the conference to people that maybe haven't got the time to go, or they haven't got the budget to go. And then as well, I would say that virtual platforms have been around for quite a while. There's a few that we partner with that we've chosen specifically for their longevity, the robustness of what they can offer. And all of those guys are suddenly becoming so important. And they are also developing their product as well, which is really exciting. So yes, we're now going onto that virtual platform. Whilst the meetings and events industry isn't able to really operate in a live space, it does give us some fantastic opportunities. And then I think what we're seeing is that as we are thinking about going back to live events probably towards the end of this year or certainly into 2021, then those platforms will really come into their own, because we'll be able to link them really effectively with the live events, and we'll be able to offer not just the original kind of live streaming that we were doing before, but it will also give everybody those connections, the ability to connect with each other, the engagement that they need. And we always say here that there's three things that an event should be delivering, which is content. Certainly we were always delivering that content in a hybrid sense, but now also connections and community that people really need.
Yep, and I know we spoke over this as well over email with a lot of hybrid events and a lot of virtual events going on at the moment. Some of them, obviously, there's a mixture, isn't there? There's always going to be a mixture. Some are great, some are not so great, and that's just the way the world works. It's the same with in-person networking. Some events are great, some are not. But I think I've had a few opportunities on networking events virtually where I feel like maybe slightly I haven't got it, or maybe I haven't got the most out of it that I could do. So do you have some advice out there for people attending these virtual events on how maybe they could get more out of the events that they're attending?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the first thing is, obviously there's so many events out there at the minute, as you've just highlighted. And so I think the most important thing is probably picking your event quite carefully. I think when this first started, we probably all went absolutely crazy and started connecting with absolutely everything we could, because there was so much and we were all isolated. But I think it's important to use your time quite wisely. And then with a lot of the conference platforms, I mean, Zoom's a fantastic offering, but it doesn't really do this. But a lot of the conference platforms are enabling people to connect beforehand. So I'd always say to people, if you get that opportunity, go onto the platform early, update your profile, make sure that you've got everything in there, links to your social media. Photograph is great, because then, people sort of have that connection. And then quite often you can also have a look at what the agenda is. You can bookmark those bits and pieces that are going to be of interest to you. I don't think any of us can sit there for hours on end looking at a screen. So it's quite important to be selective for the content that you actually want. And then also quite a few of these platforms offer connections with exhibitors and sponsors. And I think, checking those out and seeing if there's people there that are offering maybe some information on things that you need to know to grow your business, or connections that you need to make, are just really important. So yeah, do your preparation. And then I think afterwards, the other thing is to see if you can use the experience you've just had and the time you've invested, and see whether you can keep those connections going, and also, check out maybe a bit further into some of that information that you've got online and see how that can help you in your business.
I mean, you've just triggered something when you were talking there about sort of planning. You've triggered something in my brain there that I was thinking the other day around businesses who I wouldn't normally see out at networking events starting to set up virtual networking events because they know a few people who network. I mean, I don't know if you've got a comment on that, on these businesses who are looking to set up networking events, these businesses who are looking to set up conferences because they feel like that's where everyone is at, and that they feel like that's how they can quickly get hold of people and sort of attract people into talking about maybe their business. Do you think that's a good move, or do you think that has to be a way that you need to weigh up a move like that to hold a virtual event? Because it still takes planning, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, you've still got to invest the time in the planning of it. I do think it's a good idea. I think particularly at the minute when, we're just starting to get back to situations where we can meet each other, our friends and our families even. But I think for business, those human connections, the human interaction is really important. And I see that there's a few people out there, I think Omni are doing, they've completely pivoted onto virtual events, and they're offering, about 20 people, one-to-one meetings, and I think those definitely have value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, 100%, definitely. I mean, it's, you've got to think about it, haven't you? You've got to think about how it aids into your strategy, how it works for you as a business. There's no point in just doing a virtual networking event and doing it right as well, right? You've got to do it right, because if you don't put 100% into it, then what's the point in doing it, so to speak? I'm going to talk to Sian in a minute about COVID safe workplaces, Claire. But what about COVID safe events and conferences? Do we know what they look like yet?
Well, gosh, there is so much happening in the events industry around
Yeah.
this, as you can imagine, and obviously associated industries like airlines and that kind of thing. I think it is a bit of a minefield, and it does take some real thinking about. And if you have an event agency that you're working with, I would definitely use their advice and get them on board now to be thinking about your strategy and what you want to achieve, because I think part of it is the psychology of making sure that people feel safe. Obviously, you have to actually be safe. And then you don't want people to feel that they're going to an event and they're just, overwhelmed with sanitizing at every possible opportunity. So, getting that strategy right is really important. But there's just a lot out there. I mean, all of our hotel partners are doing so much at the minute. Some really exciting stuff going on. I think Hilton are looking at doing electrostatic cleaning. There is, and I think that's also being rolled out into airports and into aeroplanes. And then there's everything from, how you social distance at an event, how you receive your food safely, how you have that interaction without it feeling too weird. And, all the things like making sure that those touch points are constantly cleaned and sanitized, lift buttons, light switches, door handles. There's just a lot. And there's a lot of really fun tech out there as well. I was looking at a company that's offering watches for rental. They look a bit like Fitbits, but they beep every time you're closer than 2 meters to somebody else who's wearing one.
Wow.
I guess hopefully that will go down to a meter maybe at some point, but I just thought it was quite a fun little gadget.
Yeah, I mean, it shows how big technology can play, like how much of a big part technology can play in a return to normal life, I suppose. I mean, we all invest in technology and like a good piece of tech. So, I mean, it's a valid point. If you're watching right now and you're new to the channel, make sure you hit subscribe. We've got loads of great tips and tricks in here on how you can level up your marketing strategy, and we've got loads of great content coming soon as well. So make sure you hit subscribe. Sian, Claire, there talking about COVID safe events. I mean, quite early on when we had a conversation into the pandemic, yourself and Fudge Kitchen receive some really nice praise for the work you're doing to make sure your workplaces are COVID safe. I mean, this is quite an open question, but I'd love to hear like a little bit maybe of a timeline from you to how you managed to sort of COVID secure your factories and your workplaces, and sort of what that entailed and sort of what you've learned from the last 8 to 12 weeks.
Well, obviously, we have 3 different environments. We've got the office, which is just like any other office, which sadly has hardly any fudge in it, which is very sad indeed. We have the production facility, which is like a baby factory. And then we have the retail environment. And in all 3, it's kind of slightly different. I mean, obviously, we're in a food business already. So cleaning schedules and whether they're daily, hourly, weekly or whatever are actually part of what we do already. So we're quite lucky in that sense to have a workforce that is used to cleaning things and to think about cleaning. So, I mean, obviously, like everybody else, in fact, we closed our shops just before the official lockdown came. And then we closed the production facility on that day, the following week. And the first thing that we did was to make sure that as we walked backwards out the doors, that everything had been absolutely cleaned to the 12th degree, so that when we were ready to come back, everything was sorted. And we've taken quite an opportunity, which I expect a lot of other businesses have too, to do a lot of chucking out, a lot of file clearance, a lot of stuff, clearing the equivalent of the attic, I suppose. And that has been really lovely, so that as we've then planned how do we make these sites COVID safe, we've come back into a sort of environment that feels somehow new. So obviously the first thing that we were able to do was to bring back the production facility in a very small team. And the way that we managed that was actually to keep the team like its own little bubble and very small. So we reverted, manufacturers spend a long time trying to be more efficient with their processes, operating lean manufacturing principles and all of that. And all that went out the window, because what we needed to do was to be able to have a small team of 3 or 4 people who were actually at that point distanced really 3 to 4 meters apart, where we were moving trolleys from A to B, and somebody else would collect it from B. And at each touch point, there was a sanitation process that had to go on. And we're still pretty much at that level. But the way that we've managed to increase our capacity is by running separate mini teams, a bit like the education sector has talked about bubbles in that same way. So that's what we've done at the production facility. And as I say, because we are quite used to cleaning anyway, it has simply meant that we've upped our cleaning schedules. We haven't really had to introduce any barriers as such in the workplace at the production facility. We've mostly done it through distancing, because of course we are not accepting any public visitors on the site anyway at all. So the most complex has been the shops, because of course our shops are little shops. And not only that, we normally are pulling people in to say, hey, come and watch us make fudge, come and interact with us. Whereas now we're almost having to limit that and make that something that people can't or don't choose to engage in. So we decided that what we would try and do is to use our shop windows as our menus, if you like, so that we would bring the information that you would normally receive at a counter right to the front of the shop, so that already at the point of entry, a customer might have an idea of, one, what you've got to sell, how much it might cost, and how they buy it. So part of the whole process of buying and selling has been made outside of the shop itself. Then coming on to the inside, we've put in screens. So there's a clear traffic flow system of people walking in the shop one way, up to the counter and round the other way. And we really, in most of our locations, we can only really have 1 or 2 customers in at a time, one on the way in and one the other side of the barrier on the way out. And then at the point at the counter, we've got very, very clear, we've got perspex screens, but then very clear indication of how you pay, which is contactless only, no cash, and where you then collect the products that you've bought. And obviously our staff are all gloved and masked up, particularly through the production process, because obviously each shop is making what it sells. So we're trying to work our way around all of this, because we like talking to people and we like engaging, and we like there to be theatre, and we have just really got to work out how we can make that work with social distancing, because they're kind of the opposite directions, really. So
I was going to say, and on that, obviously you've benefited a lot from having a fully functioning and well-rounded e-commerce store during this time, because obviously it means that you can continue to take business, and it means that you're also known for having that function on your website, so customers know that if they can't come and visit you in store, of course we never want to take business away from high street stores, you never want to do that, but it can work alongside your store effectively. But in moments like this, obviously e-commerce becomes your highest function of sales, right? So I suppose the next question, I'm not supposing you, I don't suppose you have the whole rounded answer to it, but you sell products online, also you put them to retail, of course, in your shops. Before COVID, from a sales perspective, where was that balance at? Would you get more sales in shop than online, or would you get more sales online and in shop? And what do you expect that to be now coming out of COVID? Are you expecting to still be mainly an e-commerce store with a shop function, which potentially isn't taking as much as it did before the pandemic?
Well, I mean, part of that is we're all waiting to see, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
And if there's one thing about customers that I've learned in 35 years, it's you cannot double guess what they're going to do next. Mm-hmm. So I think the name of the game for us through this whole thing is to be absolutely flexible and to be able to respond to wherever that demand is going to come from. So what we have seen an enormous increase in online, obviously. It's been the only sales channel that we've had open. We have probably since lockdown, as an average, been up between 400% and 500% on what the online business was before.
What? Say that number again.
Yeah, between 400% and 500%. Now,
wow.
Obviously, as a percent of the total business, online previously was relatively small. The majority of our business was in the bricks and mortar shops. But there is no doubt that we are not going to go back to the way that it was before. There is definitely going to be a change. We are just trying to work out ourselves what that is actually going to look like. But we have already, through the last 3 months, we have started to invest in our website. We put some hard capital into it to make sure that we have a website that can grow effectively. One of our biggest challenges immediately was that we suddenly needed to make lots more fudge. All of this demand online, it was a lovely challenge to have, but it nonetheless was a bit of a challenge. And this again comes down to the fact that we are so lucky to have absolutely wonderful people. So the first thing we had to do, all our mail order fudge is dispatched from our Canterbury shop. And they're a very small team who, under normal circumstances, can cope with the level of online absolutely fine. But obviously, they were then a reduced team because there were some that couldn't get to work other than on public transport, which we weren't happy about. So we had to unfurlough a team from the Bath shop who could walk to work. And they went into the Bath shop and they produced lots and lots of fudge, and we put that on pallets down to Canterbury so that Canterbury could continue to dispatch. And then as that grew, we had to do exactly the same with a team from the Cambridge shop, and they came out of furlough to support as well. So it's been a real team effort. And actually, when I said on the 1st of July that we opened all of our shops, that's actually with one exception. We have kept the Canterbury shop for now closed to the public so that it can continue to very safely produce the product that we are selling online, so that there is no crossover between public and the online product. It can be safely produced.
Wow. I mean, that's some operation you've got going on at the moment. Like it really is. But I do also love that you hit on the point there really openly that you are investing in your, so to speak, the digital means of your company, because we are having that conversation with so many businesses who have had to scale so quickly, as you say, which is a challenge in itself, who have maybe e-commerce stores that can only just cope with the impact of growing 400 to 500%. And obviously, companies like ours, Digital Beans, we are having conversations with people like yourself, Sian, about how you do that and how you can do that effectively with your website, but also how you can sustainably continue potentially more growth from that in a way that your company can handle. I think that's a big point. It's easy for some agencies to turn around and say, hey, yeah, why not? Let's just continue growing. Let's just grow. Yeah, we'd all love to grow, but how can you do it sustainably is again another question. And as you say, it's great to hear that you're investing in those means and you're looking at different ways of doing it and also keeping up that demand. Claire, I'm going to come over to you with the next question. I mean, you know, there's virtual gatherings and events out there that can potentially, you know, help business owners, and there's a lot of them at the moment. We hit on that earlier on. Do you have any examples? Have you managed to find any examples of some great virtual conferences out there that business owners can potentially attend? Or is there maybe some buzzwords that you have in your mind that maybe business owners should take note of when it comes to looking at virtual gatherings, so to speak, to attend?
I think there's probably 3 areas that I would look at. So the first one would be those business events that perhaps you would normally attend in person. So there's a lot of trade exhibitions out there. I know that you were talking to Emily, I think last week, about her exhibition. I believe that is happening in reality.
Yeah. But Construction Expo. And apparently, strangely enough, Claire, I was speaking to Emily yesterday. Well, not strangely enough, actually good news, I suppose, for the whole sector, is they're seeing that their people registering to attend is actually up on last year at this point, which is very interesting. Demand, I mean, that's putting in mind the current state and what's going on. I think that's incredible work.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I'm hearing a lot actually how desperate people are to get back to events. It's really interesting. I think we have such a human need for that connection. But, you know, there are a lot of online events that are still running in the trade show and exhibition sector. And I think if you can't get to a real one, if that is not happening this year, then attending those are really good because it helps you learn about trends in your industry, how you can add value to your clients, and making those all important connections as well. And then I think there's a lot of online events that are specifically helping communities. So we touched earlier on the networking events, those one-to-one networking events, and then also events like, for example, the FSB are running. I know they've got a really great programme of online events, and those are fantastically helpful for small businesses. And then finally, I think I'll probably say there's a lot of free online training at the minute, and I definitely think that's worth accessing. Obviously, you know, as we said before, some of it's more useful than others, and just be a little bit careful about what you're accessing. But I mean, my team have done a lot with marketing, webinars and that kind of thing, and it's really, really helped us to be able to add to our marketing proposition.
Yeah, and what do you think's next, Claire? What is next? Do you think there's going to be a gradual changeover when virtual events can start to come back in again and we can all start safely gathering again? Or do you think that actually, a bit like everyone was forced into jumping on virtual conferencing, do you think the changeover would just happen like that and all of a sudden virtual conferencing will just, so to speak, drop and all of a sudden real life events come back? How do you reckon that process is going to happen?
Well, it is a bit of a how long is a piece of string.
Yeah,
I don't know really when we're going to be able to get back properly to live events. You know, as I say, we are seeing some coming back at the end of this year and into the beginning of next. So that's quite encouraging, and it's great to hear about Emily's show happening in September. But I think what's going to happen, actually what we're really seeing is that a lot of our clients are starting to add in now a virtual proposition alongside their live events programme. So what that means is that they can add to the reach that their live events are going to have. And I think particularly in the short term, that's going to be important because we're going to see probably less attendance to start with. It also offers a plan B in case we have to go back into lockdown at any point. But I also think they're seeing a real value in it in the sense of being able to add to their live conference programme and maybe put some of that face-to-face meetings online, and that means that we can maybe start to reduce our carbon footprint a little bit, which is really important. And it really helps people's time out of the office as well. You know, you don't necessarily want to be travelling for hours just to have a short meeting. So I think that's where we're going to really see the value of the additional virtual propositions staying online.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's going to be really interesting to see where, as you say there, that maybe the smaller events and the conferences go, but also the bigger ones as well. You know, is there actually as much demand for that virtually as there is in person? Sian, I saw a post from you on Twitter, not Twitter, LinkedIn yesterday about rising rents and the need to help high street businesses. So I just wanted to touch on this quickly because, you know, we've done a lot of work in Canterbury with high street businesses and we like to champion those businesses and small businesses particularly. I'd just like to get your thoughts on the high street and where we're at and where we're going. Do you worry about the immediate future of our high streets?
Yes, I think everybody worries about them. To be absolutely honest, they were a bit of a worry. In fact, quite a large amount of a worry before COVID even came along.
And people forget that.
You know, the demise of the independent retailer has been something that has been picking up speed for a few years now. And, you know, you walk around our local beautiful city of Canterbury, and before COVID, and there are empty shops, or there are retailers that come and go very quickly. And especially those independent retailers that make those individual towns special and different. You know, they add personality and they add character, and they're very much part of the local economy, because really leisure shopping is one of the main reasons people visit cities in the first place, not just for their basic must-have shopping items. So we now are in a situation where really for the retail and the leisure sector obviously has been hit incredibly hard by COVID, as have many other businesses. We have in the short term been very fortunate. We have been very well supported by the government by way of different types of grants or rate holidays, or also the furlough scheme has been marvellous. And this all helped very immediately in that period where we were 100% shut. But there are two key costs really for retailers or those in the leisure industry. One is staffing costs, and the other is rent. And really, with the very odd exception where we have been trying to engage with our landlords to say, look, guys, we're in this together. You know, we all need to come out the other side of this with an industry that supports the local economy. You know, we need our business to survive, but we also need to be able to pay rent. We want to pay rent, but it's got to be a give and take. It's got to be something that's shared. And we're really speaking to brick walls. We are not getting proper engagement by landlords, whether they're council landlords, whether they're institutional landlords, whether they're private landlords, or, you know, even dare I say it, religious cathedral landlords. You know, I think it's very short-sighted to simply say, right, retailers, you're back open now. You may pay your full rent. As an indication, we are currently trading in this first week we've been open at about 27% of what we would normally have expected to take over that same period. Currently, we are just about covering the cost of the wages of the staff that are coming back. So we are not covering the cost of making our fudge. We're not covering our gas or electricity. We're not covering our rent. So there's only so long that businesses will be able to survive like this, and it needs a proper discussion. The government has been great, and it's written a lovely little paper trying to get landlords and tenants to be nice to each other and have a proper little conversation. But it's a suggestion. It's a great suggestion, but it is not something that is working. So we really need local MPs and business negotiators to help landlords and tenants get round the table and understand each other's issues. Because without that, we are going to have high streets with even more empty shops.
Yeah, and we all need to keep banging that drum, because this is so important. We can't have a high street without our local retailers and our independent retailers. And also, let's forget, just from not even a business perspective, there's people behind every single business, and these people and these businesses need help. So we all need to keep banging that drum, and we all need to be making noise about this, because what is a high street and what is a town without local retailers and local businesses?
No, and so much has been already invested in the furlough scheme to keep people's jobs. And if something doesn't happen in terms of the structure of the way leases and rentals work, all of that will have been invested for nothing. because it will end up with shut shops and redundancies. There is no other alternative here. We need to be able to find a short to medium term solution that looks at rentals being related to the amount of turnover. So that whilst in this transition period where everybody's getting back on their feet, if you're trading at sort of 20% of your normal level, then that's really the level that you should be paying. And it's just difficult to get those conversations going. And I think retailers need help. We need some help.
And I hope, Sian, I hope all other retailers out there and local business owners that we know get that help sooner rather than later. And yeah, as I said, if anyone sees anything on LinkedIn, please share it. Please help spread that message, because the more voices behind it, the louder the message is. Guys, we've got to go over to our 90-second tip, which is how to grow your Instagram fast. If you've just joined the channel, make sure you hit subscribe. We're going to get Ben Linden, one of our account managers, on in a second. Before we say thank you and bye-bye, Claire, do you want to tell people where they can find you online and where they can find out more information about dynamic events as well?
Hi, yeah, thanks very much. I think the best thing would be our website, so that's www.dynamic-events.co.uk.
Brilliant. Thank you, Claire, and thank you for coming on the show. And Sian, yourself as well, where can people find you and find out where they can buy some more of your yummy fudge?
Yep, yummy fudge. Well, you can find us at fudgekitchen.co.uk, and everything that you buy there will have been made locally in Kent too. So support local is definitely something that we want to be pushing. And fudge just brings joy anyway, doesn't it? So
fudge brings joy. Fudge. Love fudge. Love it. Sian, Claire, thank you so much for coming on, guys. Really, really appreciate it. It's been brilliant having you on the show, and hopefully catch up with you both soon as well. And obviously take care. Thank you for coming on. Claire there from Dynamic Events, and Sian as well, the MD of Fudge Kitchen. Oh God, I don't know about you, Ben, but I am so hungry talking about fudge.
I've just spent the last 30 minutes building my box of slabs of fudge. Honestly, I'm such a sucker for fudge.
Such a sucker for fudge. I'm sure, right, that fudge works in any type of potential catchphrase out there. Love fudge lover, sucker for fudge. Like, it just works. It sounds like a slogan.
Yeah, I just hope their team are ready for the order I'm about to place, to be honest.
Mate,
it sounds like they are there.
Did you hear that? 400 to 500% up on business.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's crazy. But then, as Claire said, it's scaling that and all the work that comes into it. It's great having that. But obviously, for them, it means more staff. It doesn't mean 400 to 500% profits, because they've got retail stores. Sian and the Fudge Kitchen guys are doing great work there. And thank you to Sian for coming on the show. Right. Account manager Ben Linden's with us. Ben, it's the 90-second tip. What are we doing today?
So today we're going to talk about sort of growing your Instagram account as fast as possible and organically, so for free, not paying for any ads or anything.
I was going to say, this isn't a dodgy tool, is it? Or a dodgy
no. So this is a tried and tested method I used myself. So I grew an account from 0 to 40,000 followers in a year, and I guess I can show you the results first. So I've got a little tool that shows historically. This was a few years ago, but the method's still perfectly fine these days. So yeah, I'll talk a little bit about the results that I was achieving. I'll show you the actual method, and then I'll sort of explain why it is so effective. So before we hit the timer, I guess if I share my screen,
please. And also, I'm just putting this out there. There's definitely a few people in our team and in the office watching us now, thinking that they're going to be becoming Insta famous after you told them all the secrets.
Yeah. So before, on that note, this isn't a way to get Insta famous instantly. This is a long-term strategy. Depending on what kind of account you are and what you're promoting, it can obviously work very fast or can be a bit slower. This is definitely, it's applicable to B2B, but in my example and the successes I had, it was B2C. And it was a very visually attractive product. But yeah, if I've got my screen ready to share now.
I can only see the screen. Oh, here we go. Shall I add that now?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's bring that in.
So this is an account I grew. purely just as a personal experiment to see how well I could grow an account organically without spending a penny on it. So you can see they started tracking in the 13th of August 2015, just at 5,000 followers there. And then if we go all the way to 2016, so yeah, a year later, 41,000. So yeah, these were the results that I was able to achieve with this method. The main basis of it is following people, but the method I'm going to present is quite unique. I think I've definitely not really seen this promoted much. And just before we do dive into it, it is very important. So here you can see total media uploads. It's very important that you are very consistent with putting up daily content. So you can see here I was not too fussed at the beginning, but when the growth started to really kick in around May, so we're around 30,000 followers then, that's when I sort of got a bit more aggressive, and yeah, it went from one a day to about 2 or 3 a day, and that was almost as critical as what we were doing over here with the following and unfollowing.
Interesting.
So,
okay. Do you want me to let me know when you want me to start the timer then, and we'll jump into it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you can start whenever.
Ready? Okay. Well, Ben Linden, how to grow your Instagram following fast in capital letters, by the way. Fast.
Very capital letters.
Let's start the 90 seconds now.
Cool. So I'm going to use Pretty Spoiled as the example. So first off, let's just assume that I sell wigs. So the very first thing you want to do is find out who your competitors are, and particularly those who have a good amount of followers and also a good amount of engagement on the posts. So you want to pick, as many as possible, but around 5 to 10 would be best. So the very first step you want to do is obviously follow the account. Now I can't actually show you it on desktop, so you're going to have to do this step on your phone. But essentially, you want to follow the account, and then once it says you're following them, you want to then click that button again, and then you want to go down to notifications, and you want to turn on post notifications. So the whole strategy is based around following people at the perfect time. So immediately when you get that notification that someone has posted, you want to go to that post, and then you want to start following all the people that are liking that post. And then essentially everybody here is obviously, because you're doing this the moment they've posted, you're capturing people who are online, they're on their phones at the moment they're doing it. And because obviously, you're following a competitor, they should also be very interested in your account, because obviously it's going to be very relevant. So yeah, essentially you want to go through and just follow everybody who's coming through on the live. This obviously does rely, is that the timer?
We're elapsing the time, Ben, let's go.
Let's go. So yeah, I mean, the base majority of this strategy is following people the moment that post has gone live. So you're capturing the attention of the people who are on there. So you've got to think about this person who's just liked this photo, and then they get a follow request from an extremely relevant account. 9 times out of 10, they're going to view your account and decide whether it's worth following, which if you've got good content, it's going to be. So yeah, I mean, that is essentially the tip. And it's
targeted competitor following, right? And there's nothing wrong with that at all. Like, people go on about mass following being, well, not mass following being a problem, because obviously Instagram limit to 100, don't they? Like an hour,
exactly.
2 hours. So all you're doing basically is you're following people who are interested in your product, potentially.
But the most important thing is that you are capturing their attention whilst they are active. So if you typed in the hashtag wigs and then you started following people who liked the photos from a week ago, you're not going to get the same results as if they were online at that time. And I've tested this theory, and obviously the results sort of spoke for themselves. Just a little bonus tip, I suppose. You obviously do want to keep quite a good ratio of who you follow and how many followers you have. So obviously at the beginning, you're always going to be following more than you are getting followers. But when the ratio sort of tips into the favor of followers, you do want to go through. I did it on a weekly basis, and you can use obviously some tools for that. So this is the one I always used, Fast Unfollow. They're about $5 a month, very inexpensive. And you can see in this screenshot here, all you have to do is just tick a box that says unfollow those who don't follow me. You click start, and it gets to work.
I can add to this tip, Ben. You ready for this?
Yep.
For the first time ever, I'm jumping in on an account manager's tip. So Instagram also now have this feature which I've started to use, and it takes into account your interactive data with people. So I can only do this on my phone because I don't know if it's on desktop. But if you go to your account and you click following, then you'll see what pops up is a section, if my internet's going to work, called least interacted with.
Yeah.
And it shows your 50 people who you've least interacted with on your account. And that also, I had a look, takes into account people whose posts you've liked and stories you've watched, but also what they've done with your account. So you get a good picture there of people who haven't been interacting with you and people who you haven't interacted with. So I suppose another tip to that would be also regularly like some pictures on your timeline, watch some stories, because anything that you don't watch, it takes it into account on that feature, and it's an easy way to unfollow people who aren't interacting with your brand.
Yeah, exactly. And I think on that, it's worth noting.
Make me an account manager.
But yeah, I think it's worth noting that probably around 2018, Instagram actually updated the way that they show content. So it always used to be chronologically, no matter what, but now it is based upon the accounts that you engage with most. So if you're always liking this one account, you're always going to see that content when you first go on. So it's very important that the engagement on your posts are quite high and quite consistent, which you can obviously just do by having amazing content, really.
That's a great tip. I love that. Thank you for that, Ben. And of course, this will be uploaded to our playlist on how you can level up your digital marketing strategy. And there's loads of videos on there about growing your following on LinkedIn, polls on Facebook and Twitter ads. There's loads in there. So thank you, Ben, to adding to the beautiful plaudits we've got. Yeah, we're adding in Instagram. Don't forget Instagram, of course. We need to, and we've got some TikTok tips in there. There we go. We've covered everything.
Exactly. Everything. Yeah. Snapchat.
We don't need the 90-second tip anymore. Well, Snapchat. I mean, come on. Ben, thank you for coming on again, mate, and thank you guys for watching. If you've not hit subscribe, please do. We've got 2 more shows left, next Tuesday and next Thursday, so do not miss. We've still got some amazing guests coming on over the next week or so. Until then, hit subscribe, check out some more of our videos, and take it easy, guys. Have a good weekend. Ciao for now.
Bye.